As always, this is a household that's operating, so there's going to be noise in the background. People are going to be talking, so don't even attempt to say or complain about any of that stuff. I'm just going to let you guys know up front. This is my Sunday around the family, so I don't have some private place I can just go and do all this. So we're going to answer some emails here. I've got a bunch of questions. I finally got back into the channel email. Some people had a bunch of automotive questions. And I figured while I'm down and it's slow today, why not just go ahead and answer them now? Let's see here. So this is on a 2012 Fusion. This person asked about the the EPAS on the Fusions. You know how they have the electronic power steering assist? We'll get to that. I want to get to the email stuff first, so make sure that you guys re-ask me your questions whenever I get into the emails. Uh, I'm doing all right, guys. I want to stay on track, and then once I'm done with the emails, then we could answer any other questions we want, because these people have been patient. I haven't been in here. Like, this email right here is from July, I think 14th or something. That's how long I've been off of my email with the new laptop, because I didn't have anything set up. But Adrian says, I had read that someone used a remanufactured steering gear assembly on the Fusions, and just depending on what car they came off, no need for programming. Well, that could be the situation. You can order a used EPAS that's still certified or whatever. Maybe a car got into an accident, the EPAS was fine. A lot of the issue is the bad programming for so long, and then earlier models with like more defective style parts. A lot of these EPAS units use like a drive, a motor, and then they have a rubber belt that drives the gear mechanism on whichever way they switch back and forth. You can literally take apart these EPAS systems and you see there's like almost nothing to them at all. That's going to be annoying. That washer in the background, it's going to be really annoying. Anyhow, maybe if I close that little slider door, it'll be quieter. Let me close that slider door real quick. Anyhow, the whole reason why this person messaged was because they're worried about the electronic, the EPAS going out in their vehicle. And I've seen people they take and they use the used EPAS systems and they install them, and re-ask these questions when I'm done with the emails, guys. I don't mean any disrespect, but I really want to get back to these people with the email stuff first. Um, what I see is, no matter what, I see them failing. Like, I've done 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012 e-passes. They're in the vehicle for a few years, and then all of a sudden they come back with U codes again and they failed again. It's just a poorly designed system, and that's not just with Ford. That's a lot of these electronic power steering assist systems. They're just not very good. We get brand new Hondas in the shop that are traded in all the time. And we had a guy that was livid. I mean, he was absolutely livid. He came into the shop. He said, I brought this used vehicle from you guys. It was a Honda CRV or something like that. It was like a 2016-17 model. And he said, why is this thing already making noise? Why is it binding up sometimes when it's turning? Why is it's doing all these weird things? And then eventually it went out and it had to be replaced. So it's one of those things where it's not just a Ford issue. There's a lot of other manufacturers that have electronic power steering assist issues, especially GM. Have you ever been online and just randomly type in, just Google GM EPAS systems or electronic power steering assist systems? Oh my God, the amount of stories where people are just going down the road and then all of a sudden the EPAS just flat out done. And they're having to get towed somewhere, or it's fighting somebody. They don't feel safe driving it. It's not just a Ford thing. But there's a technical service bulletin out that says if this vehicle is within this many miles or this many years, you have a warranty to cover a new E-Pass getting installed, and it's completely paid for by Ford. But if you're outside of that, you can try to fight with Ford all you want, and you can try to get the dealership to go after the SSSC department, the special whatever it is. It's SSSC. I don't remember exactly what it is, but they're not really the ones that make the call. I mean, you can try to submit to them to get something covered, and maybe every once in a while they can pull some shots, but it's more along the lines of the customer working directly with Ford corporate. SSSC has minimal say in whether or not, if something's out of warranty and it's already extended that mileage in that years, you're on a prayer at that point. You can try to fight and cause as much fuss as you want, but doing that with the dealership is only going to cause your life more struggle in the future. We have a lot of customers that come to the dealership and they get mad at us, and they take out all their frustrations out on us. And they're F this and F that, and they're screaming and they're yelling and everything else, and they're literally taking it out on the dealership. We don't have anything to do with that. We don't write the recalls. We don't write the service messages. We don't write the campaigns. We don't get paid to go the extra mile for you, the customer that we've never seen before, and make sure you're taken care of. Now, if you were a reoccurring customer that has seen us many times and you've built that relationship up with us, if you often hear in my videos, I talk about why it's important to build relationships with your dealership, the one that you feel comfortable using. They will go to bat for you. They will take the extra time for you. That technician that's been working on your vehicle will go the extra step to make sure you're taken care of. But if you just show up at my dealership and I've never done business with you before, and you're livid and you're telling me that you want this done, this is unacceptable, I'm going to probably ask you to leave my dealership and go somewhere else. I don't know you. I have no reason to go the extra bat for you. I'm not getting paid to do that. You know, so people have to understand how these warranties, the customer service, the customer satisfaction programs, when all the CSPs are put out, they're put out to be done within a certain mileage or a certain year. If they're not done within that time frame, regardless if you like it or not, you're pretty much on a prayer at that point. Hopefully somebody can get you taken care of that's willing to go the extra step, maybe use some customer loyalty money. There's something that the dealership has, it's called CLP money, or it's CL. Different dealerships call it different things, but it's an allotment of money that the dealership gets from Ford, where they can take that money and they can spend it back on the customer. And it could be any customer that is seen fit to have that money. That doesn't mean that that customer is a single mother that just came in that doesn't have anything and she has no service history with you before and you feel bad for her. That's where I step in and I take my own time and money to really take care of that person because I want them back on the road safely. But the dealership themselves, they're not obligated to use that money for any specific customer. So if we see the fact that you've been coming in and you've been coming in and you've been coming in and you've got your oil changes with us, your brakes, your tires and stuff like that, and you've built that relationship with us, and you're in a hard spot and we're like, wait a second, that E-Pass went out, it has a bunch of communication codes, we're never really going to get that thing to be able to function properly. The customer doesn't have $2,000, it's like $1,400 for the E-Pass, and then it's about 3 to 4 hours to install it. Well, that's a lot of money to come out of pocket. Maybe that dealership that you've been dealing with, that you've been building up that rapport with, will say, you know what, how about you cover 1,000 and we'll cover 1,000. We'll pull out of our CL, you know, if they have that allotment of money, and they'll help you out. Well, that's when the dealership can kind of go to bat for you and help you out and do things for you because there's some money there. But if you're just a first-time person and you're ticked off and you're coming in and you're dumping all your frustration, your issues on that dealership, on that service advisor, on that service manager, on those technicians, you've pretty much just shot yourself in the foot, because I don't know how many times I've had to tell a customer, stop being frustrated with me. You're taking it out on me right now. I don't want to hear anything else about it, or I'm going to ask you to leave. I'm going to explain the situation to you, and then I'm going to try to help you. If you want to continue to get frustrated with me, and we had a customer come in 2 weeks ago. They were so frustrated that the recall parts for the Explorer roof rack wasn't available. The husband literally threatened the service advisor. He said, if you don't give me what I want, I will beat the living this and that and everything. I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, this guy's like 120 pounds soaking wet. And he's talking like this in front of his wife and his child. I wish that would have been me as the service advisor, because I would have stepped out from behind that counter and I would have said, you really feel like you want to do that right now? In front of everybody here, in front of your family? You think you're that tough? But I wasn't. So I de-escalated the situation, because I don't like when people threaten me, especially in my life, and hurting me. So I stepped out in the breezeway where the car was, and I said, let's go. Let's all go talk right now. And when we went out to the car, and I showed them what the recall was, I showed them why the parts weren't available, I showed them everything that was going on, and I said, you know what? This needs to stop right here. No more threats, no more garbage talk like this. You swear at me, you disrespect me while I'm trying to help you, I'll ask you to leave. Now I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your car, I'm going to tell you how it's going to get fixed. And she said, well, my radio froze up. It never froze up before. Now all of a sudden I drop it off at the dealership and my radio's freezing up. Here we go. Here we go. Another one of those situations where it's like, you know, ever since I had you guys, every time a customer comes in with an ever since, it's not always the technician's fault. Rarely is it the technician's fault. Typically it's a customer trying to get something and they're being unreasonable. And I said, well, okay, wait a second. Stop right now. Stop. Stop the arguing and the frustration. Stop. Let me step inside the vehicle for a second. Master reset it, cleared everything out, turned the radio back on, cycled the key, started it back up again, made sure everything. I said, see, there you go. Simple. Everything's back online. Make sure you don't have no junk emojis and stuff in your phone next to people's phone numbers and stuff like that, because when you program that into a sync system, a radio system that's Bluetooth to your phone, it doesn't like to see all that extra junk. It likes to see letters and numbers. That's it. You know, just because you went out to the club last week and you met some girl with a big juicy peach, and now you're putting peaches next to this girl's phone number and you're programming it into your sync system, doesn't mean that radio wants to see all that juiciness plugged into it. It will freeze up. And that's exactly what happened. They got a bunch of stuff next to all their phone numbers and exclamation points and all this other stuff that the radio doesn't like to see. So I de-escalated the situation. I had to be a little rough in the meantime, but I got her parts. I made sure she was satisfied. I went out to her house the next day, got all the vehicle information and stuff. But it's like people take these things to the extreme and expect us to like pull rabbits out of hats and miracles and stuff like that, and they take it out on us. I'm like, literally, you guys a lot of times don't get to see the type of abuse the technicians and the people that run dealerships have to deal with every single day. And it's horrendous, man. People come in like literally threatening, saying that they're going to do this and they're going to hurt that. And it's like, what do you think you're going to get out of this? You think I want to help you now? Yeah, I want to help you to the extent to get you out of my dealership and then never ask you to come back again if you're going to be this way. So it's kind of like, you know, you have to only have so much expectation when you go into a dealership to get services done, right? So people come in for, we're kind of going off track a little bit here. People come in for oil changes, and they come in and they want their oil changed. But while we're under the vehicles, if we see safety issues, if we see security stuff that has to be taken care of, if we see issues like that, that stuff has to be addressed. It has to be inspected. It has to be written down. And if that stuff is not done and not taken care of, then we're liable when you leave the dealership. We have to tell you, look, you got a sway bar link that's out. You have a CV axle that's leaking. You have an oil pan leak that's going on. You know what? Are they sometimes lying about certain things or stretching it? I'm sure at certain times that's what's going on. But we're busy and we're moving so much. We don't have time to really lie to people and do all that stuff. Yes, I have caught technicians in the past at my dealership where they've overlooked things and they're moving so fast because customers are rushing them. They'll go by and they'll say, oh yeah, it looks like it's got 4:30 seconds on the brakes. Put it down, recommend brakes, quick. Well, why are you doing that? Let's go back and let's look at the brakes again. You do realize you rushed past that, and the brake is at like 50% pad life, right? It doesn't even need to be changed right now, and the rotors don't look that bad. So why are you recommending well, I'm trying to move. The customer's like really pressing us right now. They want to leave. They're hostile. They got stuff to do. Well, that doesn't mean that you drop the ball on your job because you're trying to make somebody else happy, because guess what happens? That snowballs. When you drop the ball on your job because they're in a hurry to leave, they shouldn't have been there in the first place if they were in that much of a hurry. Second of all, if you slip and you recommend something that doesn't need to be done and they found out that you lied to them, you've already tainted that dealership's name, because they're going to leave there and they're going to say, you know what, I'm not going back there again because I had my mechanic down the street here that I trust look at it and they said, no, there's 50% pad life on there. Why would they recommend the pads be changed? Everything's fine. Because you were in a hurry. Let them be a little bit aggravated with the extra weight by you doing your job correctly. If you don't like something that you're being sold at a dealership, if you don't like something you're being sold at a dealership, I'll repeat it, say no. Don't complain about it. Don't go on the internet and cry about it. Don't come to us and tell us, oh, you're trying to sell me this and that. Guess what? You have the power of everything. You are the customer. Say no. If you don't want your vehicle inspected when somebody comes in, go into the dealership and say, I just want an oil change, oil and filter, and I want to be gone. That's it. Don't inspect my vehicle. Don't inspect my tires. Don't look for leaks. Don't do any of that. I want to be in and I want to be out. You just saved me a bunch of time. You know why? Because I get paid $40 an hour. You just saved me from losing time. Please tell me that when you come to the dealership, because if I have to help out Quick Lane and I have to look over your vehicle at safety inspection, I don't get paid to do all that extra stuff. I'm hoping that there's legitimately something wrong with your vehicle so I can sell you something so I can make money. That inspection is free. That doesn't pay me anything. Oil changes pay like 0.2, 0.3 an hour depending on what shop you go to. Tire rotations with oil changes 0.4, 0.5 depending on what shop you go to. We literally get robbed when we do these. We're not making money off you unless you say yes or no, okay? So if you want to come in and you want your oil change, tell me right from the get-go. I just want the oil change. I don't want anybody to look at my vehicle. Fine. You just saved me money. You actually just probably put money back in my pocket by doing that. If you want the inspection done or you don't say anything, they're going to automatically assume, let's do our general safety check. Let's see what's wore out on the vehicle, what needs to be replaced, what's leaking, and let's give that recommendation to the customer, and then they can choose from there. You have the power to say yes or no. Don't complain about somebody trying to sell you something. You're going to an establishment where somebody's doing business. You're going to get sold something. That is normal. That's everyday life. Quit complaining about it. Say yes or say no or say I don't want you to inspect it. That's it. Bottom line. That's how it works. Now that we've said that, when these warranties go out on these e-pass systems, there's very rarely anything that you can do about it. You can go buy a used unit that has been programmed for a like vehicle and put it in. You might be fine for 6 months, a year, or whatever. More than likely, it's going to go bad. It's going to come back up. It's going to fail. It's not worth it. It's worth getting a new e-pass system put in. You've bought a vehicle. If you really like the vehicle, which the 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 Fusions were the best Fusions they ever made. It's worth putting the money into and keeping the vehicle. If everything else on the vehicle is fine, put the money into it. And when you take that vehicle to a shop or independent shop or something like that, make sure when they put that e-pass system in that vehicle, they don't just install it and send it. They install it and they program it, which most of them know that they have to program the e-pass systems. But one thing that I often get at the dealership, after other shops, independent shops, have put the e-pass systems in and they program them, everything's fine, but they're still getting a warning light for the e-pass system. Why? Because they don't go into the IVD sequence and reinitialize it so the vehicle can relearn the IVD sequence. So you can go in there and you can program all you want, everything's going to function fine, but there's still going to be lights because there's a lot of shops that are not trained and they don't know that you can't just do general programming. You have to know how that vehicle's built in order to get those codes out of the system and everything to sync properly. It's not just a program. You can program some of them and they're fine. But on the Ford systems, you typically have to relearn steering angle. It has to see a stationary neutral position. After all the programming's done, it needs to reset itself properly, and there's multiple things that you have to go into. So a lot of times I got to charge shops a half hour just to hook up the computer system to clear codes and then reset the IVD sequence or relearn the IVD sequence or steering angle or whatever it is. Because they don't know. They don't work on this stuff every day like we do. Just like I don't know what they do every single day. They could probably work circles around me and other things. So take it to a place that you feel comfortable going to, but make sure they know you're not just programming, you're also resetting my steering angle, my IVD sequence, you're making sure that stuff's done as well. And if you have an issue with it, hit me up on the email here, fordbossme@gmail.com. I'll answer the email and I'll get it to you and I'll say, hey, this is what you got to do as well. So now that we've beat that horse, what's the next one? I'm going to talk about another topic another time. I don't want to bring it up right now because it could be a really, really, really gray area. It's or a rough area. Someone asked me if I wouldn't mind mentioning about the GT350 class action lawsuit. I will talk about that. but my history with Ford and talking about their GT350s and their Mustangs and their Mach 1s, they do not like me at all for that. They watch this channel, I think, exclusively just to see if I bring up their performance vehicles, because they've commented multiple times they do not like me talking about that stuff, so I'll have to be very careful. Okay, here's one. 2003 Ford Expedition intermittently loses fuel pressure while driving. Gentleman says he has a 5.4 Triton engine, 2003, perfect condition, 97,000 miles. I was driving it to the Ford dealership to get the oil changed. I had the cruise control set at 70 miles an hour. It was running down the road fine, and it just died. I tried to put it in neutral and restart it while moving. It would not start. I rolled to the shoulder of the freeway, waited 30 minutes, was able to start it. Fuel pumps can do that. A lot of people think when fuel pumps go bad, that they just go bad. I had an old guy back in my early 20s. He said, "Man, you're talking about a fuel pump going bad. Fuel pumps don't do that. When they go bad, they just go bad." Well, that's a lie. That's an old timer thinking from back in the day. When they did go bad, they were just bad. That doesn't happen anymore. I had a 94 Dodge that I would make it 32 miles from the house, and then all of a sudden it would die. I'd wait about an hour, turn around, get back to the house, think I had something fixed, replace the ignition coil. Ignition coils can heat up and do the same thing. That wasn't it, because the Dodges have a single ignition coil that feed the distributor. That wasn't it. So I tried again the following weekend after I replaced that. Obviously, I found out the ignition coil wasn't the problem. I take it back. So, man, I need to have a fuel gauge on me. I need to have all this stuff on me while this happens. Sure enough, when it died, I got out of the truck. I screwed in the fuel gauge to the Schrader, key on, while it's sitting up on the windshield. No fuel pressure at all. Wait about an hour, key on, fuel pressure's 40 psi or whatever. Get the vehicle back home. Pull the bed of the truck, and I wired in a 95 model fuel pump, because a 95 model fuel pump has a different connector. It went from it was either a square connector to a round connector. Same pins, but the connector shape changed. It went from a round edge to a square edge, or vice versa. I forget now. And I had to order a pigtail for a 95 model 318 Dodge Ram, and I got the fuel pump from a junkyard. Literally paid $25 the truck had like 54,000 miles on it. It was listed on a local junkyard site. That was when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of money, right? Still don't have a lot of money, but I'm doing all right. And when I was younger, I figured, why not? Just try to get by. But picked this thing up, put a fuel pump and stuff in it. That's exactly what it was. It never died again. Fuel pumps can get hot from consistent use and shut down on you until they cool off enough, and then they start working again. Fuel pumps can do that as well. So I would say in a situation like this, it could be a fuel pump. These Expeditions along the frame rail in the back, there's a pigtail that I found on my Expedition that it rotted out inside the connector, and it was making poor connection. And as it would drive and heat up, and then air underneath and how it would cool and stuff like that, it would actually lose connection, and then with the little movement going down the road of the harness, because it would sit down low kind of towards the back of the frame, towards the rear wheels. I pulled it apart one day, and I seen all the corrosion and stuff that was building up inside it. All the water getting slung all over it and everything else. That's a huge issue on those Expeditions as well, is the main connector that feeds the fuel pump in the back likes to rot out on those things also. And then you have to put a new pigtail and stuff in, so I would definitely check there. Hey guys, do you have like a little extension cord with like the charger? I didn't realize my phone was like. Another thing is the PCMs on these Expeditions. The PCMs, they're in a very, very bad spot. You know how many PCMs I've had to put in these vehicles because water runs right off the window, it falls right over the rubber where it's at. It's a very, very poor seal to the front hood, and the water will literally fall right on top of the PCM connections. Literally. And you'll get all kinds of corrosion and green stuff and everything else in there. It'll mess the PCM up. When did I finally send mine? I sent mine to the salvage yard when the first spark plug blew out, the second spark plug blew out, and then I was driving, and then all of a sudden it just crapped out of me on the road. There was an ice storm. Everything was iced up everywhere. The road was iced up. The vehicles were iced up. And when it shut down, I'm trying to hit the brakes, and while I'm trying to hit the brakes, I've got all this I've got hard pedal, right? So the vehicle starts to skid a little bit. Good. Luckily, when I was skidding, I ended up in the gravel, and the gravel helped me stop. What ended up happening is the radio suppression wire. So if you're looking at the front of the vehicle, on the right side, follow the motor back to the firewall. There's supposed to be a radio suppression wire that is literally anchored to the firewall, but somebody had been in there doing some work and moved that wire out of the way so they could probably get to the back plugs or whatever it is. What ended up happening is that wire that was supposed to be anchored back there fell off, or maybe they never put it back on, and I had never had a reason to be in the engine on that side, and it would sit there and vibrate going down the road, and it would rub back and forth on top of the valve cover, and eventually that one single hot wire, it rubbed through the plastic on it, and it grounded itself out through the valve cover and backfed everything. It took out my gem module, it took out my PCM, it fried everything. And then at the time I wasn't working for the dealership, so I didn't have access to cutting keys and the computers and stuff like that. So I called up the local dealership and I said, what would it take to get this into you guys? And he said, well, just have it towed here. We'll get to it right now. We're slow. So I had it towed into them, and then they called me back, the very next day, and they said, unfortunately, your gem module's gone, your PCM's gone. We found the little radio suppression wire that was rubbing on top of the valve cover right there, which is a common thing because people don't hang them back up and bolt them back down where they go, and this is something that happens. The gem modules were an issue in them. The PCMs with the water falling off of the cowl area onto the PCM connections was an issue with them. The connector on the frame rail in the back by the fuel pump was an issue with them. The relays were an issue with them. The spark plugs blowing out of the cylinder heads was an issue. That was a terrible year for Ford with their trucks and their expeditions. It was a really bad year, a couple years right there before they ironed a lot of this stuff out. And then even on the ones after it where they would tuck the fuel pump module up on the frame rail underneath the spare tire, it would almost insulate it and keep all the water and stuff under the fuel pump module, the relay module in the back, and it would rot out the whole entire back of the fuel pump module. And then by the time you'd figure out what it was, you'd take the module off and the whole back of it was gone. Half the case was just rotted and it just gone. And then we had a guy come in to the dealership with one of those trucks. I parked it in my stall, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, the vehicle's not starting. I wonder if they put a module in it. So I go back there and I'm looking, I see a brand new module there. I see the connector, the big giant connector that plugs into the side of the module. I'm like, why does it look like it's not plugged in all the way? And I'm trying to push this thing onto the module and it goes, snaps right in. And I said, the dude never had the connector plugged in all the way because it was extremely tight to push the connector all the way on the module. All it was just basically unplugging it, taking a little squirt of silicone around that weather pack seal and then sliding it right back on. After I did it the first time, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't something inside there fighting that connector from going on all the way. All I did was just pull it out, blew it out with a little compressed air, shot a light spray of a dryer type silicone inside there, not the Ford Motorcraft stuff, because the Motorcraft stuff, it's really, really, really good silicone. It has a higher content to it, and it's wet. It doesn't have that dry characteristic to it. So I used what is that company with the picture of the wrench on the can? I sprayed that weather pack seal, and it's a dry type film, and I plugged it right back in. No problem. Vehicle fired right up. I was able to clear codes and give them their truck back. I didn't charge them anything because it took me like 10 minutes, and they're a good customer. They come back to the shop all the time, so I didn't want to charge them for a bunch of an hour's worth of work or diagnostics when it literally just took me 10 minutes. I was installed. So you take care of those customers that come back to the dealership all the time. So I got them on their way. But if it was me, seems like you take really good care of this expedition. Those are the main points that I would check. But I'd also try to duplicate the issue and monitor fuel pressure at the same time. If I remember correctly, there is a Schrader valve on that fuel rail. You could drive the vehicle and try to get this to happen again, and then have that fuel pressure gauge hooked up to where only you could see it, or tape it to the middle of the windshield or something like that with a big piece of like duct tape or like Gorilla Tape or something like that, and you could monitor that fuel pressure yourself when it cuts out to see if, and then you could start to trace back that way. But I would check PCM connections. I would check the connection for the fuel pump at the fuel rail, further towards the back, towards the rear wheels. I would check that radial suppression wire, and and just verify fuel pressure before you go putting a bunch of money into stuff. But I think it has something to do with that. That's what I think. I don't know. I'm not in that situation, but that's where I would start. Let's see here. Alright, let's look at this here. I just bought a 2010 Ranger with 21,000 miles, great shape but not perfect. I'm getting a knocking sound in the bell housing, possibly torque converter related. It's not very loud, but it's noticeable. Carfax note Ford, or say could dealer services. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to run an Oasis report, just trying to get as much info as possible. Yeah, I can. I could do that for you. I mean, I could verify the Oasis on that vehicle. That's not a problem. Knocking sound coming from the bell housing. Very light. It could start out as a flywheel. Could start out as a little small crack in between one of the eyelids around it, or in between one of the studs. Somebody could have been in there at one point and over torqued something. I notice a lot of times when technicians over torque the torque converter bolts, a small crack will form there, and then sometimes in the future it'll grow and it'll grow. At first you won't hear it. It'll sound like a little wisp at first, as it starts to move back and forth, and the air in that area will circulate around. It'll whip back and forth, and then it'll start as a little tick, and then that tick will get louder, and it'll start as like a knock, and then you'll start to be able to verify that it is coming from the flywheel, or what is it? I don't know what year the Ranger, the earlier model Ranger, where you would get sounds coming in from inside the transmission, and you would get like a solenoid pack code or something like that. And a lot of times when you would replace a solenoid or something in it, you get this like tapping sound coming from inside the motor, and not the motor but the transmission area. And sometimes you would get a solenoid code, and it wasn't necessarily a solenoid issue. You would get a solenoid code because the band wasn't doing its job, and it starts to crack, and eventually it'll actually snap. So that early solenoid code is telling you that something's wrong inside that transmission, but people automatically assume it's a bad solenoid, and it's not. It's the actual band, the band that goes around the pack that it's controlling will actually start to crack and rot away and snap across it. And a lot of guys will keep throwing solenoids at it, and that tapping sound or that ticking sound is actually, on two of the Rangers that I've done, was actually the band starting to come apart, and it would crack, 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 and it would pop back and forth whenever the solenoid would open and close. So a lot of people would think that it was a torque converter issue or a flywheel issue, and it wasn't. It was actually internal to the transmission. The transmission needed to be, while you're there, you may as well rebuild it. So if I remember, and I need you to remind me, just pop on the channel and comment on one of the videos or something and say, hey, remember to check my Oasis. I'll snap a picture of it. Is my other phone over there? Can I have that phone by the sister? I'll snap a picture of it now so I have it in my phone and I don't have to go back into the email. Thank you. All right, on to the next one for now anyway. Let's see here, I'm all the way back to July 7th now. All right. I don't know if you get time to toss out some help, but if you can, I'd sure appreciate it. 2005 Crown Vic LX Sport 4.6 liter 2 valve that I have boasted about on your channel, has 306,000 miles. I noticed the chatter at startup and narrowed it down to the videos determined it was a bad tensioner. After pulling the timing chain cover, Sure enough, the right one was not fully extended, and the chain was about an 1/8 inch loose. Uh, they did the timing chain and oil pump. Motor was extremely clean. Put everything back together. Here's where it gets interesting. Car started fine prior to this. I could never. Prior to this, one, I could never find a definitive answer on the net about torque specs for this year. All other years were conflicting, so I went off of a 2001 video I seen. The guide said 218 inch-pounds, but before I could get the click, it just felt like the bolt was going to snap. So I watched a video from a guy that did a 4.6 liter on a Mustang. So a lot of times, whenever I'm going in and doing all these timing components, I don't know if people still do this or not, but me personally, if I'm going in and I'm doing a bunch of timing components, water pump, all this stuff, I don't reuse any of the old hardware. I refuse to use it. So if I have to do a torque spec or a torque to yield spec or something like that, I will not reuse old hardware. For instances like this, I've tried to do that before, and when I go torque something, I can feel where it should be and where I feel comfortable, and then you can almost feel like the threads are starting to pull out or it's starting to stretch a little too much. And it's just, it gets to a point where I'm like, man, I don't feel comfortable going any further. But if I order new bolts, a nice set that hasn't been messed with or stretched out, I can get in there and click, 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 everything's fine. So I find a lot of times it's because a lot of people reuse old stuff. And I know some people are against that because they say a lot of the old stuff is still good. I don't like doing it. And it's for instances like this where I feel like I'm almost going to break something sometimes by reusing the old stuff. And I've experienced it over and over again. I can look on PTS and I can actually see what the torque spec is. If that's what you want me to do, I could definitely do that 100%. Anyway, I got the car back together. No crank. I can turn the motor by hand with a breaker bar on the pulley nut. When I go to crank it, all I hear is a click. I have the sensors all, well, let's see here. I need to like downsize this email because I'm having to shift back and forth in this thing. There we go. I can turn the motor by hand with a breaker bar and pulley nut, but when I go to crank it, all I hear is a click. I have checked the connections, all the sensors. Something stupid with electrical I missed, or I did while I was there. I did take my time anyway. I've included some pics of the car. This has always been my dream car, and I got it 4 years ago. I just have not driven it much because I don't want to trash the motor. So let's take a look here and see if we can. Oh wow! So just so you guys can see, it's a gorgeous car. Gorgeous car. Very, very nice car. Okay, so the first thing I'd be concerned with is you're hearing a click. You were just in there doing a bunch of stuff. I would be verifying. I would be verifying all the connections to the starter, because if you've already done the job and you're confident you've got everything back together correctly, nothing's binding up, you're able to spin it over, and you get it and you stick your key in the ignition and you go to kick it forward, I'd be looking for a ground or something that I didn't put back on. I know these vehicles are very sensitive about ground, so that's why if you look back in my previous Panther video where I showed you of me refinishing the front cover, resealing everything, getting all the oil leaks and stuff, that the front cover was leaking a little bit, and so was, and now none of that stuff's going on. I actually added an additional ground to the stud underneath the alternator going over to the battery to cut down on some of that electrolysis that's going on, so I don't have that coolant issue from the runner that jumps from the plastic intake manifold to the other.
And I've noticed a couple guys that have run that, put 50, 60,000 miles on it with that additional ground cable in there. They don't have any leaks around the intake manifold like most of the Panther guys do. I have nothing. I run that cable, it never shows signs of leaking or anything like that. And I think that's what it was, is Ford didn't put enough grounds on this motor, and that, you know, that fixes some of the issues. But I would go back to the basics, because if you're hearing a click when you turn the key forward, something's telling me either the starter's no good, the starter solenoid's no good, you left something loose in there somewhere when it comes to like a cable being grounded out somewhere, and power connections and stuff. So that's what I would do first, is I'd go back and make sure I check all my connections. Because even if the vehicle doesn't start, even if you did everything wrong inside that motor and it's spinning over, but you're telling me that you stick the key in and you turn it forward and it's not doing anything, I don't know if, I mean, I know enough about these cars to get around and help people, but extra grounds, I'm not sure about that though. I'm not that well versed with the P71 stuff. But I would go back and I would actually start looking at what it takes to fire that starter over, because it sounds to me like something's wrong there, something's loose. Because it should at least turn over. Because by what you're saying, it not turning over and it just clicks and that's it, something's definitely wrong with connections going to the starter. Let's see here. 2006 Lincoln Town Car owner. All right, what do you think? What do you think it is? Only does it drive 2000? All right, so listen to this sound. See if I can get a clear sound of it. I'm not hearing. I hear it. I do hear it. It almost sounds like a PCV rattle, or it sounds like a like while you're accelerating and the vacuum is leaving your dampener door assembly and stuff like that, because this is all vacuum actuated in this vehicle. Like something's either getting hung up, and when you let back out of the throttle, the vacuum is being reapplied to certain areas, and like it's struggling, and it's like screeching and bouncing on the back side of the dash. It almost sounds like a PCV rattle squeak, and it also sounds like there's like something wrong with a blend door or something hanging up, or like a squeak in the back side of the dash closer to the motor. Let me go back to the email and see what we talked about. And then I actually asked him, I didn't realize I already responded to this email. Are you talking about that noise that almost sounds like a PCV rattle vacuum leak? And he says, yes, I just put a brand new OEM PCV valve in. It was time for one anyway. It's never been changed, I'm sure. It did not change the sound. It's still there. What should I check for now? I mean, it's the sound is so faint coming from the video you sent me. It's like hard to pinpoint where it's coming from. So it's going to be hard for me to say. It almost sounds like it's something from the windshield, back of the motor, front of the firewall area, right in that firewall area, like something. Does it still make the sound? Here's what I would be. Does it still make the sound with the AC and everything off? That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see if all the AC stuff is turned off, is it still making noise? And is it only when driving? Does it do it when you're sitting there? Does it do it while you're also idling? Send. Okay, we move on to the next one right now until we can get further clarification on that. F-150 tick. About a month ago, upon startup and idle, the engine has a slight tick rattle coming from the passenger side. It did not happen after that at all until yesterday morning. It came back and now will not go away. I'm assuming it is my timing chain tensioner, and when I used a screwdriver to hold to my ear, was very loud, sounding like a worn bearing. And when put on the tensioner pulleys, again was loud, sounding harsh. I have an appointment this Monday with Ford, and I do still have warranty on the vehicle, but I'm concerned with the fact that they might try and sell a new engine. What do you think they will do to resolve my issue? Timing job, or is it a little less involved than that? Well, they'll be able to pick up right away if it's some kind of pulley related, tensioner related on the front of that motor. They're not going to try to sell you something like that. I mean, I know dealerships get a bad rep because they think that people are always trying to sell, but that's the game. We got to sell stuff. If it's broken, it's broken. We're going to try to sell it to you. That's how we make money and keep the doors open. If you don't want it, you say no, right? And if you feel like you're being done wrong, then you always go to another dealer or go to an independent shop and let them look at it, get a second opinion. I'd rather pay somebody, to look at it, not feel right about it, than pay, a different source completely, like an independent shop, and get their opinion on it, and rather than feeling like somebody's screwing me over. So always do your homework when it comes to that. Don't be afraid to take it to an independent shop if you don't like what the dealer's telling you, or take it to another dealer. It's always a huge plus for that warm and fuzzy inside you. Second of all, it's not hard to pinpoint whether or not that rattle and the tick sound is actually coming from the front of the motor somewhere. VCT solenoid, could be anything, and even at that, it's not an expensive fix. You've seen one of the trucks I just had in the shop recently where there was a tick type rattle coming on D-cell, where Ford doesn't recognize the vehicles on the previous years, the VCT solenoids on D-cell. Guys with the Coyote motors, they'll get into the throttle, they'll let out of it and go brrr, 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 rattling from right at the VCT solenoids. And what I did was, like, I'm not going to wait for somebody to complain about this. This customer's in here. They probably don't even notice it yet, but I have a keen ear for this stuff. Look at these suckers. They stick out. No, sir, I didn't. And I was hearing it while I was pulling into the shop. I just give it a little throttle and let go of it, and it was rattling from the front of the motor. And I was like, wait a second, that don't sound right. And if I catch it early enough, there won't be no damage. So as I'm pulling it in, I get into the throttle a few more times purposely, and I was like, oh, that is not right at all. Something's definitely wrong with one of these VCT solenoids. And as soon as you get into the throttle a little bit, you just go ahead and increase to the parking lot, let go quick, and snap your foot off of it. That one exhaust VCT solenoid, brrr, 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 it was buzzing. And I said, wait, get somebody in here and let's put a load on it, brake torque it, and let me listen to it. So I got my stethoscope and I'm listening to that one solenoid. And it's the only solenoid out of all the solenoids doing it. I said, something's wrong with the solenoid. And sure enough, there was a TSB talking about replacing it for excessive noise and possibly setting a check engine light for exhaust VCT solenoid position. So I took care of the customer while they were right there, because I didn't want them to be stranded somewhere else. We let them know, hey, I heard something I didn't like. It's just a quick hour job. I'm going to pull your valve cover, clean everything up, put a new VCT solenoid and stuff in, reseal everything up, and that's it. I could have went along the lines of trying to claim some kind of engine, this and that and everything else, and screw them over, but that's not what I do. Most shops, they're not going to do that. Most independent shops, they're not going to do that. It's people's few bad experiences that they've had with shoddy independent shops where they don't do their homework, or dealerships where they don't do their homework. There's a few of them out there. I'm not going to say they're all innocent. They have tainted the waters for the rest of us, but most of us, yeah, I'm not going to answer that question. Sharon, I can't answer that political stuff on this channel. It gets me in trouble when I speak my mind. I got a pretty good balance of people from all spectrums of life on this channel, and That's why I don't talk politics. I've messed up one time and said something about politics, and oh my God, I heard about it, and I was like, nope, never again. I will never bring that up again. Let's see. I got a question from Sherry. I'm a subscriber and have been really enjoying your series on oil filters, of course. Your videos are great too. Your other videos are great too. I have a 2017 Ford F-150 Ecoboost 2.7 liter, new in August 2017. Thanks to COVID lockdowns, it only has 32,000 miles on it now. Anyway, I use the Chevron Havoline full synthetic Pro DS 6-quart box from Walmart every 4,000 miles, but since Ford put the cartridge filter mount on the front of the engine, right side up, I changed them to the Motorcraft. I changed out the Motorcraft FL 2062 filter cartridge every 2,000 miles, or whatever I want to, without having to drain all the oil first. I know you've recommended changing the oil every 3,000 miles, but I figure if putting in a new filter every 2,000 should keep things clean, that 4,000 I extended to shouldn't be a problem. Do you see any problem with this? Absolutely not. And I think that that's wonderful that you've actually thought about that. Most people that drive vehicles don't appreciate their vehicle enough to think outside the box like that. Sherry, that is wonderful that you would even consider doing this, because this just means that you actually care about the piece of machinery that's getting you from point A to point B. And it's just amazing that you even thought about doing that. You know what? 2,000 miles, I'm going to change a filter, and I'll give myself a little bit more time for my OCI. 4,000 miles in a situation like you're doing, wonderful. Love it. Absolutely love it. And it's good oil. The Pro DS oil from Havoline is great oil. I don't see any problem with that. If you're looking for other possible videos, you might want to consider looking at that oil, which I will look at that oil for sure. I've seen a lot of people say some good stuff about that, and they love running that oil. I'd appreciate your opinion on tires. I'm still running the original Hankook 265/60R18s that it came with. They seem to be good all-weather tires and have been handling the Florida rain well. Do you know if any long-term issues have come into the shop, or perhaps maybe a recommendation when replacement time comes along? Thanks for all your hard work. I never miss an episode. Okay, so I kept saying Sherry, but this is actually I see on the bottom where maybe it's her husband using her email. His name's Will, and he's from Florida. Thanks, Will. I appreciate that. Excellent job on your service. Excellent, attention to detail here. Absolutely love it. I have no problem with those tires. That tire is a very popular tire that comes in on that truck, and people actually love those tires. So my personal opinion is I like those tires. And if you feel comfortable running those tires again, I would continue to run those tires. They're really good tires. We've had one guy come in and he was ranting and raving. He's like, well, I've owned this vehicle for 4 years, and 2.5 years ago I had these Hankooks put on there and they're already starting to crack on the edge and stuff like that. The guy was like pissed, yelling at me. I was like, what do you want me to do? I'm not the tire warranty guy. I told this guy straight, because he seemed like an old timer that was just a straight shooter, so I figured I'd shoot him straight back. And I said, what do you want me to do? I don't carry the warranty on this thing. You're more than 2 years into these tires. There's no warranty anymore. That's gone. Well, you want to take it up with the manufacturer, maybe they'll send you a set of tires out, because we can show them the service history and the record here that you had them replaced. It's 2.5 years in. I don't know if you set these out, this out next to the house and don't ever drive this thing, and it's in the sun, they're dry rotting and everything else. I don't know what you do, but there's no warranty after 2 years. These tires aren't warranted. And you bought it used. I mean, how are you going to try to claim warranty on a tire that's used and you bought the truck used? It don't make no sense to me, but anyway. I love those tires. Those Hankook tires seem to drive really well. There's not a lot of road noise, and they're very good in all weather conditions, just like you said. So if anything, and you feel comfortable with them, I'd keep running them. I wouldn't change. So somebody sent me a super chat, and I didn't see it. Jason. Or Jaron, sorry, I said Jason. Jaron, I appreciate that, man. That's awesome. I touch your heart anytime, brother. Well, let's go on to the next person. Let's see here. I also like Wait, there's one more part to Sherry, Will. If you're looking for possible videos, you might consider taking a look at that oil, the box of 6 quarts. I also like that it pours quickly into the engine without glug glug splash, since the plastic liner collapses as it's poured with no re-entering until you're done. That is definitely a plus. Another topic you might consider discussing is catch cans. Since my 2017 has direct injection, I understand that they went to port injection after that year. They went to dual injection. They went to port and direct injection. They put a double set of injectors in the truck after that, just for the prime reason of keeping those valves clean. I put one in it early on and have been surprised with how much blow-by oil is prevented from going back into the top. I love catch cans. I don't see a problem with them. I think I thought I thought his name said uh, Jason. It says Jaron. I'm not sure which one I got right. I think the 3.5 liter engines are a great engine. It's just you 50, 60,000 miles into it, you've already got phaser rattle. It's hard to justify. It's hard to tell somebody that it's a good engine when it's happening with all of them. So catch cans, I think catch cans are just amazing. Good evening. I like catch cans. I think catch cans should be on every vehicle, even port-fed vehicles. I wish that all vehicles could have catch cans put on them from the factory, just for this simple reason that it stops all that excessive blow-by and that oil and stuff that's caught through the PCV system from getting pulled back into the motor, and it's not good fuel. Don't nobody want to burn raw, nasty fuel. I worked on an F-150 with the Ecoboost 3.5 I replaced the front wheel bearings on it. Yeah, I like the earlier model. Somebody asked earlier, what's the best year F-150? I think that if you're looking for the new technology, newer power, it's going to be somewhere like 2011 to 2014. 2011 to 2015 were like my favorite years with the least amount of problems. We had they were the ones with like aluminum pans, metal front covers. They were put together, not metal front covers, but front covers that weren't leaking. We didn't have nowhere near the problems with the earlier 2011, 12, 13, 14 F-150s. They never came in with serious issues. Guys with 140, 150, 160,000 miles, love them. And the only thing you have to do is just reseal the back of the vacuum pump on the passenger side cylinder head. I mean, $30 worth of gaskets, an hour, hour and a half worth of your time, and then you're back on the road another 150,000 miles before it starts leaking again. So it was the earlier model F-150s in the Ecoboost line, and they just to be frank, they just seemed to run a lot better. There wasn't all the plastic stuff all over the place. It's a very nice design layout, rode good, had plenty of power and stuff like that. So personally, the Ecoboost line, or these newer, more efficient, powerful line, it was the earlier model, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then after that I kind of was like, you know what, I'm not a fan anymore. Um, 13 Explorer. Oh, so I'm very familiar with the 13 Explorer. I enjoy your videos. I enjoyed your video in Bill K today. Really cool cars. There are a lot. I have a question. I installed a K&N cold air intake this weekend. Sound is better, and I did notice something that you did too at 30 mile an hour. It really kicks in for sure. Oh my God, with the cold air intakes, even though it's setting a lean code, about 30, 40 mile an hour, you roll into the throttle at 30, 40 mile an hour, and that cold air intake's on there, it's just like the throttle response is way better. How the cars are you can just hear it just hogging air pulling through it, and it just rolls. But end up getting a lean code because it's not programmed for that setup. Um, my question is getting Explorer dyno tested. I know you're in Dundee and I live in Northbrook. I'd like to have it tested at a dealership if possible. Do you know of one? I don't know of any dealerships that dyno test. I believe some dealerships might have one because of the Shelby Mustangs and F-150 tuning. That's all built. So the Shelby Mustangs and the F-150s, when they get the Roush packages and the Shelby packages and stuff like that, a lot of that is done in their facilities, and they already know what to tune these vehicles at, what the tune's supposed to be, how to set the air fuel, or all this other stuff, fuel pressure. That's all part of their kit. They don't actually do that stuff at the dealerships. Maybe they did back in the day, but they don't do that anymore. And as far as I know, everything's set up. Maybe there's another one of the Acura guys here who can answer that. Or Arcadia. You're gonna have to find one of those independent. Come on, man. This screen keeps. Okay. ABS lights on, code C0040. Put sensors in, traction control light is on. It has no power at 3,000 RPM. And it has an evap code help. Would be great. Well, you got several things going on here. As for the evap code, I always check gas cap first. Most of the time, it's the gas cap that's not tight enough, or it's the actual purge valve. Nine out of 10 times when I do something and it has some kind of evap code, it's almost always the purge valve. I've done a couple vent valves, but almost every single time it's been the purge valve. We replace the purge valve. Even friends that contact me, hey man, I got a Focus, or I got a Fusion, or I got this, I got to replace purge valve. I got an Explorer, replace purge valve. They replace it and they're like, dude, how'd you know that? It's like the only thing that goes bad in the evap system on these things, man. Almost every single time. It's just nothing out of the ordinary. Purge valves can even set like vent valve codes because the vent it'll cause some kind of efficiency triggering between the two when they got to be in sync together. So that's why I always run my evap test on the manufacturer computer and I watch everything move, and I can tell and I can pinpoint exactly what it would almost every single time is a purge valve. And you're right. I did a what the heck was it? It was an older Explorer, like a 10, 11, 12 Explorer, something like that. And I kept testing for evap, and I couldn't pinpoint anything. And I hooked a smog machine up at the green port at the purge valve, and all of a sudden I see it start coming out by the gas cap. I was like, what the heck is that? And I pulled the gas cap out of it, and that plastic ring that sits down inside the filler neck, it was cracked. It was busted. And I was like, well, that's all part of the line. So I had to replace the whole entire line. You're right. Well, I don't know anything about the Chargers. I know I see a lot of them online for sale. There's got to be something to that. I know a lot of those leak oil too around the. I would say you're gonna have to go to a dyno place on that, getting your Explorer dyno tested. I mean, none of the dealerships that I know of even do that anymore. I mean, you're gonna have to go to like a speed shop or something like Dyno Tune MP or whatever. There's a lot of places around that still are doing that kind of stuff. Let me look down here real quick. I think there's a couple more questions I have to answer, but it seems like I'm getting close to the end of it right now. I've been watching your channel for some time. On heavy acceleration, the transmission won't shift to the highest gear and it over revs. I change the trans with Mercon LV on a regular basis. 70,000 miles on a vehicle. If you have any input on the tranny issue, would be great. Thanks, Bob. And this is on a 2014 Escape 2.0. Well, I've had some issues with these where they don't do it like you're talking about right now. I've had some issues with these where the valve body themselves, or the whole trans unit, not the valve body, the actual solenoid pack control unit has to be replaced on these things. Sometimes they won't start. It'll literally, the whole entire pack in front of the transmission, and like some of the focuses, I don't know if it was some of the fusions, the escapes. I know on some of the connectors that go into the front of the transmission, they have connection problems. A lot of times it's internal trans problems, and there's nothing that just a general talk like this that this is going to be able to fix. We're doing these transmissions, we're rebuilding transmissions on these things all the time. It just depends on what trans you have. So if you're driving and everything seems fine, and all of a sudden, you know, you're trying to get into higher mile per hour, and it's just not going anywhere, and it's over revving, you almost sounds like you have an internal trans issue. And that's not uncommon. I hate to say that, but that is not an uncommon problem with these vehicles. The transmissions are oftentimes having issues. So I'd make sure if you don't have that solenoid body in the front of the transmission, yeah, I updated on that 21B10. I just talked about that recently. There's supplement number 1 they canceled because it was causing more issues with the vehicle. Supplement number 2 has come out and they're waiting to notify customers. They're waiting to notify customers. I think they said July 26th is when they're going to send most of the notices out, but customers have said they're already getting notices that they're going to have to come in for reprogramming soon. The first session of reprogramming is reprogramming the PCM and then going out, pulling up your data logger and watching your power balance and seeing if any of your cylinders are dropping out. If you don't see any cylinders dropping out, that fixed the problem. But if you see cylinders dropping out after this new reprogramming, you got to go back to the shop, reprogram the computer again, except this time select yes, I am reprogramming because of engine shutter, transmission shutter. And then the programming sequence is completely different, and it puts different programming in the computer. So Ford has said there is a supplement number 2. It is out. It is out, and they're just waiting to call customers in. They're waiting to start rolling and getting this programming and stuff done. We haven't done any at the shop yet, not a single person. So we're waiting for the first customer to come in to get that done. I'm almost willing to bet that you got some kind of internal trans issue. And I know that doesn't sound like the super tech-like thing to say, but I've seen enough of these come into the shop now that when they start doing stuff like this, almost 9 times out of 10, something's either wrong with the valve body or the trans is going to have to be gone through. Where am I at here? So this guy, thank you for going the extra mile and offering me help. My truck has heated only seats. The driver's seat back remains on regardless of the bottom of the dash being pressed or not. The dash buttons light up on the passenger seat, works as designed. It's super uncomfortable right now as my back's burning up. I have scheduled an appointment for a service dealership or for service at the dealership, but the appointment is over a week and a half out, so this has probably already been taken care of because this is so long since he sent me this email, and I do apologize. But when I look at these pictures here, I'm not seeing what I want to see. This doesn't look like the seat that I need to see. It looks like I'm looking for a specific module in your seat and I don't see it. I don't know if you took a picture. I need a picture of the passenger seat underneath. I'm not sure if that's what you took a picture of here. Most of the time when that happens, it's a connection issue. The pins, they start to burn up, and when they start to burn up, they short across, and then the connector and everything has to be replaced. The module has to be replaced, the connector has to be replaced, all of it has to be replaced. That's 9 times out of 10, that's what it is with those heated and cooled seat issues. I'm a subscriber of your YouTube channel. I own a 2015 Mustang. I also live in Illinois. Was thinking about possibly getting headers. I wouldn't try to install them myself. Was wondering how much you'd charge me to install them over a weekend or something in your free time. I don't. Right now, I can't. I hate to say this, but I really can't take on any side work right now. It's for one, my dealership monitors everything that I do, and so does Ford. I mean, let's speak openly and frank, so that wouldn't be a wise thing for me to do and then talk about it on here. And then number two, there's a liability. What if I work on something of yours on the side, and let's say, God forbid, something happens and I screw something up? I'm not saying I'm going to do that. What happens if I screw something up and then you don't realize that relationship between me and you stays completely separate from my dealership life, and then you're calling up my dealership saying, hey, we had this YouTuber that works for you and he did this work and he messed up my car and everything else? I don't need that. It's personally one of the reasons why I don't like to do side work while I'm on here, because it's either I'm on here helping people or I'm off of here picking up side work, not telling anybody about it, because this could get me in a lot of trouble. So I don't moonlight. It's not something that I do. So I just want to be straight with you. I typically don't get into stuff like that because it could hurt me more in the long run by doing that. Yes, I could make a ton of money, but unless you're willing to come through the dealer and actually pay the money to have me work on your stuff through the dealer, under dealer insurance, dealer knowledge, and all of us knowing what's going on here, it's not very smart for me to do something like that. This guy says I got an Explorer squad car. I have a water pump coming up on this squad, and it's about 150,000 miles plus. I've recommended all Ford parts, but do you think the oil pump should be replaced? No. Nope, you're fine, Paul. I've never had to replace the oil pump while I was there. I've never done one. Always water pump, the timing chain, stuff like that, tensioners, never had a problem. Oil pump's fine. I mean, if it's something you feel like you could do it, I'm sorry it took so long to get back. Follow your channel since early days, and I appreciate all that you provide. I have a question. I have a 15 3.5 liter Ecoboost owners have on various forums, rough idle at stop signs. A number of us experience this. Truck comes to a stop and has a slight rough idle. Sometimes it's just barely detectable. Sometimes it's very smooth. Sometimes it feels like it's close to stalling out. No check engine light, no other symptoms. Same AC on or off. So far, in my case, I have changed the spark plugs, boots with dielectric grease as well, changed the air filter, cleaned all three maps, and the throttle body, any insight. Well, first of all, I make sure that there's no aftermarket stuff done to the vehicle. No cold air intake, no none of that, because if it's not tuned correctly, that could cause some issues. I would recommend, if you can get your hands on a scan tool or something like that, to clear your keep alive memory. A lot of times when there's a hiccup, or maybe there's a certain amount of hiccups before you do the tune-ups and clean everything up like you did, it will have a stored database of like stuff that's been going wrong with it before the problem was actually fixed. So if you're having air and fuel related type concerns, I would go back in and I would actually, after you've done all the stuff that you've done, clear your keep alive memory and let the vehicle relearn new strategy. Because it's not going to know right away, and it's going to take some time for this to happen. So go in, clear your keep alive memory, let that data table flush itself out by you clearing it, and then relearn new fresh data. And all the time, just because you clean the throttle body doesn't mean that it's functioning properly. I've actually done a few throttle bodies on the 5-liter Coyotes and the 3.5 Ecoboost because they were faulty. It's not an uncommon thing. Is it that Does it happen? Well, I can't say. It's not an uncommon thing, but it doesn't happen a lot, if that makes sense. It's not just an every once in a while. I maybe do 1 or 2 of them a year, 3 of them a year. So, I mean, it's possible that the throttle body itself could actually be bad. But I would first start with clearing codes, clearing cam. Hey dude, I don't even know your name. I hope this doesn't come across rude. Love your content, easy to understand. You come across as humble, super credible. Man, I just put on a nice show, man. I don't know what I'm doing. No wonder your subscriber count keeps going up. I thought, hey, get out, go in your pajamas, you sillies. Pajamas on the dogs. I've got a few questions relative to the subject title. 3.5 Ecoboost 2015 model, 160,000 mile ATF change, question mark. Okay, anyhow, current 15 3.5 Boost located in southeastern Ontario. A lot of Canadian people lately, and I love it. I love the fact that I'm reaching the Canadian crowd as well. Huge Canadian crowd. It is humid year-round and stupid hot in the summer. It's 127,000 mile, due for an oil change and going in for the BG flush and plenum fuel rail flush. Thinking, but also will cause, okay. You talked me in, I talked you into it, thinking, but also it will cause rough intermittent idle kind of lags, kind of like my old 5-liter V8 I mentioned, which is why I'll ask more questions on it as I think more on the service. I also wonder about the owner's manual. The theme for most of the questions, does this enter the equation, and should it be more frequent than what the owner manual suggests? 160,000 mile or 160K in Canuck, 100,000 in American, change the spark plugs. I'd never change a set of spark plugs at 100,000 miles. I change my spark plugs in my vehicle by every 30 to 40,000 miles. I will never, ever go that. I won't even go 50,000 miles, but I know 50,000 miles can be safe, but on boosted applications, never, ever. I have F-150s and boosted Explorers that are coming into the shop between 30 and 40,000 miles already starting to misfire because of the amount of oil that gets pulled back into the intake manifold, and then the ignition system is having to do so much work to keep everything firing properly. You should see the plugs in these things at 30 and 40,000 miles. They are atrocious. 30,000 miles on a boosted engine. I'd never go any more than that. I recently had, in the last year, 2 vehicles, one 35,000, one 38,000 miles. It was simply a set of plugs is the reason why it was running so rough, and it was a boosted application because of how much it pulls back into the intake manifold from the PCV system. So absolutely never 100,000 miles on those plugs. Never. Let's see. BG flush and piston rip out slow. There's carbon. Go. You keep walking past the charging cord and rip it out. A big old lab walking by, and every time he comes by, he hits the table on the cord and the phone starts. He's like 11 months old and he's already over 80 pounds. Let's see here. Let's go back to where we were. As your BG flush and piston rip out shows, if there is carbon and soot deposits on there, wouldn't it also be plausible that there would be on the spark plugs? Yes, I've seen carbon soot deposits on the plugs as well. I would go with OEM plugs. Oh yeah, like just when I was at the tuner on my town car, the tuner said when people come in here to do performance mods on their vehicles, I do not like tuning a vehicle that has MSD spark this and that and everything else and NGK plugs. I want the OEM ignition coil and the OEM plug on the Ford vehicles that I tune. I do not like this aftermarket ignition system on the vehicles that I tune, because he said I find that the Ford ignition coils and the Ford plugs, when I gap them, so my car would be like 50 Ford 56,000s. If I gap your plugs at about 45, I can get it to run a little bit better. But I find that OEM plugs and ignition coil last 10 times longer when I tune your vehicle versus putting an aftermarket set in, NGK or any of this other stuff. It just doesn't work out for me. And he said I just don't like doing it. When customers come in here, I want Ford ignition coils and I want Ford spark plugs put in there. It seems to work the best for me. And that's what I would do. I would go back with the factory stuff right back in that vehicle. I haven't, but next week we're gonna hit 2,000 miles on the town car, and that's when I wanna pull the mobile out of it, cut open the filter and everything, and change the oil. And then I did get the new shipment of the Pennzoil Platinum Ultra. I did the Pennzoil Platinum before, but I didn't do the Ultra yet. I did the Ultra in the Dodge, but I didn't do a video on it. So now I actually want to do a video on what the mobile looks like, pulling it out and the filter and cutting everything open and looking down inside the cylinder with a bore scope, or inside the oil filler cap, and I'm going to put the Fumoto valve and stuff on there, and we're going to do a review on it. And then we're going to put we're going to go with a Purelator Boss filter on the town car. I'm going to run the Purelator Boss. I've been wanting to run that. And we're going to run Pennzoil Platinum Ultra through it this time and see how I like it. And I'm actually going to send off like oil samples and stuff like that. So 100K in American change coolant. This seems really high. Orange coolant. Well, they don't use the orange coolant no more. They went to VC13. Is it VC13G or something like that? Is the new coolant VC13GL? So it actually now supersedes the orange coolant, but they're saying it's a compatible coolant with all the newer stuff and the older stuff as well, all the orange. So it went to VC13G now. And 100,000 miles, yes, I agree. I also don't like that recommendation for the coolant lasting 100,000 miles. They used to have an additive or a filter, you know, on like the semi trucks that you could spin on, and it had coolant additive that when it would start to wear out, it would keep that additive level up. Even on vehicles, like on diesels and stuff like that, you can actually go take the diesel additive and top off the additive, just the additive package, and leave the same coolant in there, and you could actually bring it back up to level by the little strips. Now on the standard like passenger car Ford stuff, you know, the F-150s and the cars and stuff like that, I like to see it flushed every like 50,000 miles. My vehicle, I flushed it at 20, and then I flushed it again at 40, but I'm also going to flush it again at like 60 as well. I mean, I'm anal about that stuff, but at least by about 40,000, 50,000 miles, I like to see all my services done by. I don't like going extended. Everything done by about 40,000, 50,000 miles when it comes to fluid maximum. Brake fluid, every year needs to be changed. It's way too hydroscopic. They've done plenty of studies now that say the brake fluid is not really all that safe past 1 year anymore. They used to say 2 years. Then they would say, you know, by a certain mile. It's not even true anymore. It absorbs so much moisture, and they put such a high performance synthetic fluid in the vehicles and stuff now, the .4, .5, whatever it is stuff, that every year you should pull that stuff out and replace it. I know it doesn't sound right, but that's my opinion. Transmission fluid, 40, 50,000 miles. Engine oil, 3 to 5,000 miles, depending on your schedule. Coolant, 40, 50,000 miles. Brake fluid every year. Power steering fluid every year. That's just the type of stuff I believe. I believe in maintenance. I don't believe in taking a ton of people's money and stuff, you know, $5,000, $10,000 every time they come into the dealership for major repairs. Do this stuff now, and you save yourself from having to do that. Let's see, 150,000 miles for the trans fluid. Yeah, as I just said, it's hogwash. I'd never go 150,000 miles. That's probably part of the reason why their transmissions are failing just not outside of warranties, because they're telling people they can go 150,000 miles. It's not. Trans fluid is not good that long at all. And again, I apologize for getting back to you so late. So we're gonna kick off the email stuff for now, because we're all the way back into June, and there's no point in me just letting him know I did a video response to this. Look at today's live. All right, so I'm gonna shut this down for right now. I'm gonna move back over to you guys. Anything that you guys want to talk about before I get off here? People that have already asked questions that I just didn't make it to. Again, I apologize. What's today? What's today's date?
25th.
The 25th. It says I just got an email saying that oh, wait a second here. I got another email that I didn't see. Dealer replaced the axle O-ring in my Explorer ST recently because of a leak coming from the front four-wheel drive inner axle unit. You guys remember me saying this is going to be I know this is going to be a common problem because of the amount of police cars this is happening to. Subframe was lowered to remove the left side motor mount to gain access to remove the axle housing. Could it be misaligned now or something went wrong putting it back together? He's saying now I'm experiencing from the front left a tire rubbing against the inner liner when making a U-turn or sharp left. Yes, it could be. That's very possible. This is a possibility. And it needs to be realigned properly. And should be covered under warranty. Due to previous repair. Done. So there we go. Alright, there's no more. Let me look back at the comments. 2020 Challenger, my wife is saying it's clicking when turning at low speeds. Any thoughts what it could be? Yeah, CV axle. CV axle, or the way the front CV axles are torqued to the hubs in a lot of these newer cars, not just Ford, Chevys, Dodges. Something's up with the way these newer, higher horsepower in like more sporty style responding suspensions, the hubs, the way their CV axles go into the hub, some of them take a shim, and the shim actually wears out premature. Some of them aren't torqued properly, or they're torqued too much, and some of them, the CV axles themselves are bad. So that's a common thing. Okay, so no CV axle. Let's see. I didn't know if it was one of those all-wheel drive units or not. I thought they were starting to make new Challengers and Chargers or something all-wheel drive. I don't know a lot about Dodgers. Okay, so then it could be a hub. Let's see. Can she pinpoint where the click's coming from? I mean, there's well, maybe we should start with that. Where's it coming from? Front right, front left, the rear? I mean, it could be a rust or something building up inside one of the hub bearings. Trying to think if maybe a suspension component or something could be loose, so while she's turning, it could be flexing in and out. It's brand new. It's still under warranty, so. Okay, so I did run the VIN on this Mach 1, and you guys need to understand that all these Mach 1s are not built the same. Something happened whenever the production was coming out. Everybody thought they were all going to be getting this LSD type setup or whatever it was. That is not the case. That is not the case on these Mach 1s. Some of the Mach 1s here in the United States came with the torsion style setup. Some of them had an LSD setup. Specific Mach 1s had specific things, but all Mach 1s are not built the same way, and they all do not have the same rear end. I've already looked and verified, pulled VIN numbers and stuff like that. So a lot of people are thinking because Ford advertised the Mach 1 and it would have this specific type of setup, that there wasn't another type of setup. But overseas, they started changing things up. It's almost like they tried to pull a slick one. So when people ordered their Mach 1, it didn't necessarily come like they thought all the American ones came. It came a little bit different. There were different setups, different packages. You still got the Mach 1, but you didn't get quite what you thought you were getting. So yeah, I did run the VIN number. I did go by VIN on the PTS website, and it did have a Torstens LSD. I mean, that's what the PTS website is built. I mean, the only way that you're going to be able to verify that is maybe tearing into it. But that's exactly what the build says on that particular vehicle. So if the build is saying it, I mean, I don't know what else to do beyond that. Front left. Look to see if the CV boot has grease around it. Well, he's saying that it's not an all-wheel drive setup. That it doesn't have CV axle on the front left, so a CV boot wouldn't be an option. No, I haven't, Jacob. I haven't seen that yet. I mean, but I can see. What's going on in Steel City? I think it's something to do with a bearing. Wheel bearing. Considering buying F-150 with electric power steering, have you had any issues with the EPS? No, the EPAS. I had some connection issues. I did have water getting the connections on a few of them. I did have to replace one EPAS in the last 5 years. So really there was nothing too crazy about that. I have 2.5% oil dilution in my 2020 Ranger. I use Pennzoil full synthetic platinum and change every 8,000 or 8,000 kilometers. At this interval, will it even affect my engine if the oil is diluted so little? I don't think so. I think everything's fine. How did you come up with that percent dilution, though? Did you send it off and have it tested by, like, Blackstone Labs or somebody? What's going on, Todd? Putting the 2.3 in a truck like a Ranger. No, I mean you're good. That little bit of dilution is probably not that big a deal, but at the same time, obviously you have I would assume it's a 2.3 liter EcoBoost. Okay, so the biggest issue with that, Greg, is when you take those spark plugs out, either people are too nice or they're too crazy with them. I was at the factory training center down in New Orleans, and the guys down there said we don't even recommend taking them out normal no more. You get down on there with a nice, good quality spark plug socket, and it sucks to say this, but they say they find more success in actually taking like a 3/8 impact and just hit it hard. Just give it that initial jolt. And instead of giving it time to snap and curl up on itself and pull threads, they're saying that with the engine, with the cylinder head about 140, 160 degrees somewhere in there, if they take an impact and they just jar that 3-valve spark plug, it's just enough impact to really jar it loose to where they almost never have problems with the spark plugs coming out. But if you try to do it normal, I've seen a lot of even our own technicians break them because they don't like doing it with the impact. Me, if I do it with the impact, and I do not break them. But I'm not saying it's not possible. I do what the factory training guys have said other technicians have taught them, and they're not even the ones that came up with it. It was technicians that were at the training center years ago that said we quit doing it the nice, get the hand tools out and everything else because that's just causing problems. We actually went to like a decent sized heavy duty 3/8 like ratchet that's pretty quick, a pneumatic ratchet, or with an actual 3/8 impact to just jar it and get it out. And if it breaks, it breaks. There's no way that you're going to save it. You're going to waste more time trying to figure out if it breaks than if you just get to your business and get it out of there. I really don't like the North Star engines, to be honest with you. They were every North Star engine that I've ever been around, unless it was like closer to brand new. Yes, same as the 4.63 valve as well. That's how those guys. A lot of those guys just they pop them out. If they break, they break. They're gonna break anyway. Now that's just what I do, and that's what I've seen work. Now, regardless if other people agree with that or not, that's irrelevant to me. I know what I do when I get the job in my stall and I got to get the customer their vehicle back in a timely manner, and I'm not going to sit there with hand tools and just pussyfoot around with it. It's not something I'm going to do. What was somebody else asked something just now? Yeah, the North Star engines. Every time I've ever been around a North Star engine, it's always smelt like. I wanted to make you a moderator on the channel, Vitaly, so I'm going to do that right now. I have a question. 5W20 was recommended for the 2010 3.5 EcoBoost Tour shows, but starting 2011, Ford changed it to 5W30. You're fine with 5W30. I think just Ford has a consistent history of doing that. Look all the way back to like 98, 99, 2000. Ford has flip-flopped with 5W30 and 5W20 for so long now it's unreal. Both of them almost lay on top of each other, so you'll have like 5W20 will be in this spectrum, and then 5W30 will be over here. So it's 5W30 can handle a bigger temperature range that 5W20 can't. So it's Ford being Ford. They did that in like 2000 with the Panther platform cars. It said in the manual to start, and there was a TSB put out about it to start using 5W30. And it was like there for a few years, and then all of a sudden they switched back and said go back to 5W20. What changed in that amount of time? Nothing. Who knows why they did it? I'm not excited about the Ford Maverick, honestly, because I haven't been looking into it. I haven't been hearing a lot of people talk about it. I haven't honestly been hearing, other than you guys saying that you can't wait to see it, it's been like, whatever. I mean, it's just, to me, it's another Ford. I mean, it's, you start to do this for so long now, you don't really get excited about a lot of this stuff anymore. So it's like, I'm excited for you guys, excited for me. Just another car. So a lot of people are like, you know, how come I don't get as excited about certain things like they do? It's because I see this stuff every day. I deal with this stuff every day. I'm in grease and oil and fuel and stuff every day, and in customers' cars, ripping stuff apart every day. It's like, I don't get excited by a lot of it anymore. Kevlar belt is it is because I've run on the Dodge. I've put about 30,000 miles on that Dodge, or 25 or 30,000 miles on that Dodge, and it has a Kevlar hybrid Continental belt on it. Zero wear, and I've owned that Dodge for a couple of years now, and it's like brand new right out of the box. Shows to be absolutely no wear at all. So that Kevlar mixture hybrid that they use, it just in general, it seems to be a really strong compound. No matter if it's a internal belt or external belt, it seems to be really, really good. Greg said I run some seafoam in it and I use a impact on a hot engine. You believe the ST trim of the Explorer is here to stay? I think so. They've actually had pretty good success with the ST trim package so far. My Ram, that Magnum engine and that Ram, it never, I mean, one time it left me stranded. And I fixed that with an upgrade in the driver and the PCM for the ignition, and that was it. The truck, even though it's a dog, that is a workhorse. That 1500, I've done more work with that 1500 than I have with any other Ford or Chevy or anything. Just that regular 5.2 Magnum, I beat the living hell out of that truck, and it just runs perfectly fine, like brand new. No AFM stuff, no electronic this and that and everything else, and there's plenty, and I didn't know this until recently. I went on Hughes Engines. They have a whole drop-in kit for that motor. There's cylinder heads, there's like a whole new fuel management system for that motor, everything. It's all drop-in stuff. They have long tube headers, shorties for it, cams for it. That motor is a 200 some horse motor right now that with less than $10,000, it's sitting right at almost 400 horsepower, just drop-on unit stuff. And that Hughes engine place has it. If COVID ever lets up and lets people get back to manufacturing stuff, I've seen guys on the internet and stuff use their stuff, and they're like, "Man, these things are sick." I love that truck, man. It ain't nothing to look at, and it's nothing to brag about. The AC's cold, the engine runs good, the trans shifts good. I keep the fluids changed and everything, and I never have any of the problems that anybody else complains about. Just FordBossMe@gmail.com. Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be, when we get more into the electric stuff, there's going to be less need for technicians. There's going to be a guy that hooks up a computer. The computer's going to tell him what to do, and then he's going to go do it. So we're not going to need so many people floating around, probably. There's going to be a lot more schooling. People are going to have to go back and get a lot more training. A quart every 3,000 miles is not necessarily a bad thing. There's a spec for it. The spec used to be like a half a quart to a quart every 3,000 miles. Now, I don't know if that's changed since then, but if you're only at a quart every 3,000 miles, I wouldn't necessarily be super concerned with that. But what I would be concerned with is, remember, I just did one of these F-150s not too long ago, where the oil life dropped down to like 19%, and it lost more than 1 quart of oil, and it disabled the PCM. And that was on one of these 21s. So make sure that make sure that if you ever plan on getting a new truck, like newer than what you have right now, that you really know the history of that vehicle. That Coyote motor isn't a saint. It does burn a little oil. That's a normal characteristic of that motor. And I've seen a lot of guys fix that by. Thank you, I appreciate it. I've seen a lot of guys fix that by running EPR or something through it. They run that EPR flush through it. And I'm not saying this is going to fix yours. I'm saying other people. USB not working. Are you talking about the USB in the transit van not working? Jeff, thank you for that super chat, by the way. Just wanted to point it out. On a 17 Lincoln MKX 3-liter twin turbo, access the fill plug on the PTU. Does the factory have you pull the wheel or off, or you can just get the plug from underneath? Correction, MKZ. Ooh, I think that one, I'm not sure if that one has a cooler on top of the PTU, and you have to, some of them have a cooler on the PTU, and you actually have to unbolt the cooler, and yes, you are going to lose a little bit of coolant and pull it out of the way to access the plug that's on top of the PTU in order to siphon the fluid out and change it. Some of the cop cars are like that way too, on some like the 3.7 Explorers and the 3.5s, depending on how the PTU was built. The heavier duty stuff, the more powerful stuff, they'll put a cooler on that PTU, and you have to move all that out of the way just to get to the plug, and it's a pain in the butt. All boosted at some point? I don't know that they're ever going to get rid of the 5-liter, because the 5-liter is so popular. People, no matter what, no matter the engine noise or the oil consumption issues at all, the 5-liter is so popular, people don't want to get rid of that motor. USB ports in front have no power. You're going to have to check the lighting, or not lighting, but auxiliary power fuse. I did actually have one where the power fuse was out, and it specifies in the owner's manual exactly which one that is. So I would start with checking that fuse first. Yeah, I see a lot of people talking about filling from the vent hose. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that. Even when the manual says that, I don't like that. I think JLT oil catch cans for a Coyote is the best thing that you can put on that motor when it comes to catch cans. JLT is a phenomenal brand. I love their products. I love the staff. When you call up and talk to somebody, you're not talking to somebody you can't understand. You can actually understand them, and they talk to you and work things out immediately if something's wrong. So if I supported a catch can company, it would be JLT. They've always been super responsive when people have needed help. Unfortunately, I don't know very much about that 4-liter inline motor that you're speaking about. Is there any other pertinent questions right now? We got 62 people on here right now because I'm about to jump off of here if there's no other questions. I just wanted to touch base on the emails and let you guys know I haven't forgot you. But now that I got the computer up and running today, I should be good. No idea why they did that. It was not a good idea, but I mean, I'll be back on here tomorrow, but I'm going to start doing some more like my own personal things and not so much the dealer. Like, unless there's something crazy that comes out, like a recall or something I haven't showed you guys to fix yet, I'm going to start, working on building the oil testing station and continuing my testing on like the air filters and maintenance stuff and all that. It seems that yeah, where's he at? Archie, 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 come here. Come here, Bubby. Up here. Come up here. Come here. Oof. 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 He's a tank. I can't. Hey, come here. No, come over here. Over here. Come here, babe. Over here. Come here, babe. You're not in trouble. You're not in trouble. Come on. Come here. Come here, mama. Oh, come here. Oh, come here. Come here, baby girl. It's a baby girl. Here you baby girl. Here, good girl. So that's the two pups. The boy, the first one with the big fat head, he was I think he's just barely 11 months old. He's right at 11 months old right now. And he's like over 80 pounds. They got to take him back to the vet to get him all like, you know how when they're young they got to go back so many times to make sure they're growing right and everything's okay. Her dad takes very, very good care of him, keeps up on all that stuff. So just like she does, the other one as well. They're very, very well maintained, serviced animals. Let's just put it that way. They're family. Yeah, I got to get back to that Dodge engine flushing. I could just knock it out of the park and just do the BG EPR and just show you guys how that stuff works, like the full $300 dynamic kit, and show you how much crud it gets out of that. That would ruin all of our other testing. A lot of people want me to do different types of flushes, and if I cleaned that motor out with the EPR, the system dynamic stuff, there would be no real way to tell whether or not something is working in these hot engines and stuff like that. So that engine is a staple to the cleaners that we want to use, right? And I almost feel bad because I could just get the $300 kit and just clean that engine out and just let it be healthy. There's a part of me that says quit screwing around and buying all like the STP stuff and all that other stuff and seafoam and just go right to the good stuff and get that motor clean so it'll last longer, because who knows what's going to happen in between. I don't know. What do you guys want to do? You guys want to get the $300 kit and let's just throw it through that motor, and you want me to show you? So I personally, like even on my town car, inside that motor is super clean. It's like a little bit of varnish here and there, but it's so light it's normal. It's 227,000 miles on that motor. It runs like it's brand new. And I like to do an engine flush on that vehicle every third or fourth oil change. I'll flush it. I'll just do a general quick EPR flush. And that's how I keep it maintained. Well, that's it, guys. Let's just jump off of here and we'll meet again. Thanks, guys. 2 days going live. That's kind of not normal for me, but I appreciate my family being patient. And, you know, Steel City, people don't like how forward I am. They want me to be like passive aggressive. They want me to bite my tongue. They want me to do all this stuff. And that's not me. I'm just going to be me. And I get a little emotional about things sometimes, but that's who I am. That's just, I'm a normal person. I have feelings. I care about things. I care about people. I care about animals. But at the same time, I deserve respect too. And that's why I won't play this pissing contest with other guys out there. I won't butt heads with mechanics and try to play who's better or who's worse. I just want to build people up, and I want to be a part of somebody else's life. Even if they're better than me, I want to learn from them. So that's how I am. I just don't like the bullheaded competition stuff, because at the end of the day, I'm going to win. I'm not going to lose, and I don't want to be I don't want to have to be the winner or the loser. I just want to be a part of a family. That's what I want. Anyway, I love y'all. Y'all be blessed. Y'all are great. Here every time I'm on here, leave comments and stuff all the time. Always bringing people here. Thank you. I'm gonna go spend some time with my family for the rest of the night, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Be blessed.